So we're going to move now to a panel session, a panel Q&A session. So you can see, hopefully, that Mirko has joined us. Welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And also, Alfred has joined us. Good afternoon, Alfred. Lovely to see you. Great of you.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
So I think right at the start, somebody asked whether any farmers would be involved in this, and lo and behold, we ran out and found one. No, we were always planning that Alfred was going to join us. Don't worry. So we're going to just do something that's a little bit complicated at the moment. I'm going to ask the panelists a question for them to think about. Then I'm going to run a poll, and then I'm going to come back to the panelists and ask for their answers. So that's what I'm going to do first. So just for the panelists to be thinking about in terms of the question, in your view, which of the broad recommendation actions in Melanie's presentation might be most important for increasing the uptake of soil improving cropping systems? So that's just for you to think about which of Melanie's recommendations might be most important. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And they're coming back up on the screen now, just for people to have a look at. Now, for those people in the audience, there is a poll for you to answer. I'm looking at. So that's the poll there. How important do you think it is for policymakers? No, that's not the poll. This is the poll. This is the poll. Okay, so and immediately gets one vote. Somebody hit on it straight away. Which of the priority actions identified by stakeholders do you consider as being the most important for facilitating adoption of 6? Now, I just also point to people that it goes down a little bit. So don't just click the one at the top. Have a little scroll down, have a look, have a think about it, because they do reflect what Melanie's been talking about. Okay, so while people get voting on that, let's have a talk to our panelists. So let's just think about that question I've just posed. Which of these broad recommended actions by Melanie might be the most important for increasing the uptake of soil improving cropping systems? So let's start with Mirko, and then I'll go across to Alfred. Okay, Mirko, please.
Well, I'm not sure I will influence the poll. For me, it's like a receipt. To prepare a good dish, you need a good mix of all the points. So all the 5 are quite good, and I would like to go quickly through them. So, for example, for the long-term ambition and targets, we have seen that indeed they are being defined, and the legally binding instrument on nature targets is coming. So that's on the good way and promising. Yes. Concerning coherence between policies objectives, the soil strategy will come after a certain pathway has been already done in the Green Deal. So that will actually ensure the fact that it's consistent with all the other policies. Also, the fact that the Commission decides in a collegial way, so any proposal, even the soil strategy, will be reviewed by the whole Commission, and this will ensure also consistency between policies. Concerning targeted economic instruments, yeah, that's a key point. I see carbon farming as promising, even if it has been still to be defined. There are many options possible, and things have to be thought over. For sure, solutions that address both the climate and biodiversity are the best solution, not only focusing on one and then forgetting the other crisis. Concerning policy monitoring, we have the good news of the launch of the Soil Observatory in the EU, and it will soon come up with some initiatives. I'm sure about that, maybe together with the soil strategy. So and it's now open to member states and other stakeholders. So that's also promising. And then concerning the knowledge, this will always be needed, and it's important for me to build on what has already been done. So a good mix of all these 5 should give a nice, tasteful risotto, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Mirko. You're talking about my favorite dish. So that's great. So Alfred, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you first of all for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. And first of all, I want to make a compliment to Melanie, because I rarely hear that scientists, even scientists, they say we need a more systemic approach. And because every scientist is in his speciality, and somewhere where he or she is a specialist. But it's really necessary, and I fully agree with Mirko here, that we need all of these bullet points, and they are all important, and therefore it's really important. So on our farm, we try to have a really systemic approach, because we think we are facing complex problems here on this planet for society, and we should really try to face these problems. We can't put everything on the burden on the shoulders of the scientists and say, okay, solve climate change, solve the loss of biodiversity, and so on. But we really have to work together with all stakeholders and society and farmers, practitioners, but yeah, sure, science and politicians. And therefore, we need all of these things. What I'm a fan of is strengthening the existing and establishing new opportunities for learning and knowledge exchange for farmers, because I think there is a huge need to raise awareness, and not only see the need for SIGs, but also to see the benefits. I think it's also a question of which terms that we use. So as soon as farmers see the benefits of making these activities, then they don't need that much incentives. They don't need that much business models. Still needed everything, but not as a priority. But as soon as I see, okay, there is a benefit for myself, for the next generation on the farm, but then also for society, for the planet at the same time, then I will change my behavior and change my methods to the better, and nobody has to push me with or has to monitor me that much. Even if we need all of that, but first of all, if the motivation is high and the enthusiasm is here from farmers, so I always compare it to if I hand over a smartphone to a young person, then I don't have to push them and say, okay, now you have to read the manual and tomorrow you have to understand everything, because they will just not stop using the smartphone until they have explored every single detail on it. So as soon as we see the benefits, as soon as we can raise the awareness for farmers, they will run and do whatever they can to increase caring for soil.
That's great. Thank you, Alfred. And a great analogy, a great comparison of the use of the smartphone. I think we'll all be remembering that in the future. And Mel, although you've been doing a great job of presenting this work of the team, is there anything of the recommendations that you would emphasize?
Well, first of all, I should probably say that it's a bit of an impossible question that we asked of you to pick what is most important. I think I completely agree that everything is important and that we definitely need a more systemic approach. However, looking at these recommendations, and also I'm obviously biased a little bit because I've seen all the information that we have on the factors. I do feel that economic instruments and coupled with information and learning are really crucial. I mean, you rightly say it has a lot to do with understanding, Alfred, as you say, understanding the benefits and the costs of these practices. But as I said before, I mean, it's sometimes you're not able to take the decisions you would like to take because of the circumstances. So we do need to think about these financial aspects. However, I would also add, I think there's, I don't know if it would be another box, but I think there's something missing. What I said earlier, I do feel that we probably need to think a bit more about the consumer side. I don't think it features very heavily, and I think it's part of the puzzle, and it's an important one. So that's probably something that I would add, and that we might add as we go forward and refine these recommendations.
Perfect. Thank you. No, that's great. Thank you very much. And that sounds like a recipe of unity and motivation that we need. So let's take a quick look at the poll, just see what people are doing. Give people a little moment to vote for some more. And yes, please, Alfred, carry on.
Yeah, may I add one thing? I'm not so much a fan of carbon farming. Because we have a huge risk on putting all the risk on the farmers' work, and even if even scientists are not sure what results we get out of that. And then now carbon sequestration is the new buzzword. Again, everyone is concentrating only on carbon, but we also have other soil functions and other ecosystem functions, and I think if farmers understand the need for carbon sequestration, and they understand the need for creating healthy soil habitat, then and they work towards it, these business models are a little bit difficult because they measure the carbon content at the beginning, and then let's say after 5 years, and if the carbon increased, then the farmer gets some money. But after another 5 years, if the carbon doesn't hold the level or doesn't increase even higher, then he has to pay back the money. So the whole risk is on the farmer. But if he uses these sustainable methods and regenerative methods for 10 years, he didn't only sequester carbon, but he also reduced the loss through erosion. He increased soil biodiversity and other soil functions. So please don't focus only on the carbon credit thing, but let's see the bigger picture again and have a more systemic approach there.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. Mel?
No, I just wanted to quickly react and say it was not meant as a promotion of carbon sequestration, carbon farming, but just as one example for how we can reward some of the benefits that are delivered. Obviously, we need to have the broader picture in mind.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, let's have a little look at the poll. People have had a chance to answer it, so let's see what they've said. So I'm just looking for the most popular one, and the most popular one is fair subsidies coupled with strong monitoring and enforcement, limiting opportunities for abuse. So I'll just let you reflect on that, and I'll find the second most popular one. Or it's a tie, making soil health part of future sustainability assessments in policy impact, and lighthouse projects raising awareness and providing examples of best practice. So most people are talking about fair subsidies with strong monitoring and enforcement. So it might be interesting given our earlier comments. Would any of you like to just briefly reflect on that? Mel?
Sorry, I was distracted.
That's okay. That's okay. And also now you see the audience are joining in. So now suddenly we have a barrage of questions as well as everybody joins in, which is lovely. But only that as we're all trying to speak, read, think, and juggle all of this at the same time. So okay, let's go on, Alfred.
I can add a little bit about the Lighthouse project because I'm a lighthouse farmer myself. I'm part of the Global Lighthouse Farming Network from Wageningen University, and it's a great opportunity to do not only research on farm research and trials on farm, but also work together with students and young people and get in new perspectives on the farm, have a multi-stakeholder approach, and this is really, really important. On the other side, having lighthouse farms, and I'm also at the mission board I'm a member of the mission board for soil health and food, and we promote lighthouse farms and living labs. So they are also on a big level, hopefully. The benefit is when we have enthusiastic farmers working together with researchers, and we have that huge communication gap between research and practice, because on one side farmers are afraid mentioning something or bringing an idea in because they are afraid that the researchers could say, well, we already covered that and it doesn't work. So there is a little bit of distance there, and on the other side, farmers say, okay, scientists they talk theoretically, but they have no idea about practice. So there is a little bit, and it's the same on the other side. So there is a gap. But if enthusiastic farmers who understand researchers and can work together with them have a lighthouse farm, and then they can act as a bridge to other farmers, because the farmers can talk and easily talk with other farmers, so they can act as a bridge. And therefore, I really like the idea of having this lighthouse farming system.
That's great, and it's lovely to meet a farmer from one of the lighthouse projects, which I've heard about. I was just going to say, we've got lots of questions that people have been texting and so I'm going to try and get some of those for different people. So let's just start with a quick, easy one for Alfred, perhaps. I mean, just try and keep it brief. But this comes from Gwenna Sydney, is how can a farmer jumpstart soil biology? How can they start a quick, good start to getting their soil going? And then I'll come to Mirko with a different question.
Several methods. But a new and innovative approach that we try to establish here on our farm is we seed coat with microbiology. So we take what we learned from soybean production, for example, in Europe, that we don't have these related microbes in European soil, which soybean needs to be a legume and fixing nitrogen. So we add these rhizobia to the seed before we seed it into the soil. So what we do now is we add the whole diversity of vermicompost or earthworm compost or thermophilic compost to the seed and bring that to the soil. So we reduce the amount of what we need. We reduce the amount of compost to 1 liter per hectare, and we still can increase soil biodiversity. And there is still a lot of research needed, but it's a wonderful method and easy to do. And you don't need high tech, you don't need or expensive equipment to do it. So it's a good jump start.
Perfect. I think that's really helpful, because I'm conscious we've got a global audience, and so really interesting to share those things. Now, this question is for Mirko and Mel, and this is the question that has been upvoted most. It is the most popular question of the day. So it comes from Celine, and I'm going to try and read this out accurately now. One of the issues of trying to adopt SIX is the fragmentation of advice and scientific evidence. Some projects are working on improving communication and collaboration within the advice sector, but we're still struggling with evidence aggregation. Did SoilCare or any project work on offering SIX evidence platform that could be easily searched by practitioners? So I don't know, is that within your sphere of knowledge? Go on, Mirko.
Quite specific question, but maybe I can say something. I'm not a researcher, I'm not a soil scientist, so I'm in the policy making. What I see is that this fragmentation in research is now being overcome, and we are going towards a more coordinated and I would say holistic governance, where the knowledge is coming together, that we are putting together efforts, and that's where we should go indeed. And I think that the soil strategy will continue in that direction. Also, I would say the mission on soil health and food has contributed in that direction to putting all efforts together. So it's fragmentation is being overcome, I would say.
Brilliant, thank you. Mel, any thoughts from you?
Well, I think the simple answer is, first of all, no. I mean, if we really want, if you want one place that would consolidate all the information or evidence that you have for different practices, I don't think that's there yet. I know that we have tried in other projects. Mirko, you remember in the project we worked on together on the Sustainable Development Goals, we tried to at least compile information from different projects. But there is no such platform at the moment. But I would agree with Mirko that we're definitely networking more. We're coming together more. It's a bit easier to find information. I think for different research projects, but yes, I think it would be useful to have something like a database where you could just really look at different practices and all the evidence across different categories, be that impacts on different sustainability indicators, but also costs, policy barriers. I mean, that would be great to have that. Completely agree.
Okay, that's great. Now, all of the researchers have now left to go and write that as a proposal. Now you can hear the keyboards clacking away, and people are popping things into the chat there that give examples of this. So that's fantastic. So next question I have, which we might start with Mirko, and then we can maybe go round the room. Are there any plans to improve the flexibility of agri-environmental schemes in CAP reform, as part of CAP reform, to make them more flexible?
Oh, that's a 1 million question. If there were plans, then that would be known. Now we are focusing on the new CAP to find an agreement at the institutional level. That's the key. And then we will be starting thinking to the next CAP, because we know that every 7 years there is a new one, so we can think to the future. But now let's give the opportunity to find an agreement on the current CAP.
Great. Okay. Mel, Alfred, you wouldn't comment or?
Yeah, a quick comment on that. I'm not a politician, and I'm not involved in the CAP, not on national level and also not international. But for me, it's a bit of a difficult topic because on a farmer, sure, I relate on CAP also, but I would love to see more enthusiasm, more engagement, and I see that the Parliament, that the Commission is pushing forward. But the member states are holding behind, and for me it's a little bit of shame, I have to say, that it's not more ambitious in regard to environment, in regard to all the challenges that we have and that we face, and we need much more environmental regimes and all of that. And yeah, that's for a quick statement. Just my personal opinion.
No, well, that's why you're here, Alfred. We need, it's nice to have an opinion from somebody outside of the sort of circles who normally appear on these occasions. So we're really chuffed that, and that's what we want to hear. Mel, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Oh, I think I would second what Alfred said. I think at the moment what we're seeing is, well, I should say on paper, I think there's scope for flexibility, and I think the idea that you give more flexibility to member states and to really introduce what we didn't have before, a strategic planning tool where these interventions, the different types of interventions that we will have, start with an assessment of the needs on the ground and the threats and the opportunities up to defining different types of interventions. That's great already. And that I think is a step in the right direction. And I think there is flexibility. I'm not sure it's being used at the moment. I think Alfred's right. And I think it's not, I think partly because of the negotiations still going on, partly because we have this changeover and member states are hesitant. I think we also need to recognize that the CAP has existed for a very long time, and member states are doing what they're doing because of whatever reasons. And having had conversations with policymakers at national level, it's clear, I think, that they're not going to radically change their approach, which is a bit disappointing. But I think it's not surprising either that maybe we're not seeing that change in how decisions are being made and interventions are being designed at the moment. So I think it's probably a bit of a missed opportunity right now, but let's see what we say in a year.
Yeah. We live in a time of change, certainly, don't we? And who knows? A year seems like a very long time at the moment. And I'd like to, just beg the indulgence of our friends who are joining us from all over the world, because I'm conscious that the Common Agricultural Policy of the EU is huge in all sorts of food chains, all sorts of policy arenas. So, what's happening in EU discussions does have real importance for other people. So let's now think of another question, which in some ways I've been waiting for all day, how does policy thinking reconcile the gap between declining yields for food but greater sustainability in the soils? So that old question of sustainability versus productivity. How do we balance that we need to be productive, but we also need to sustain the soils? Does anybody want to jump in from their perspective? Or do they want to run away?
No, I can. It's not a problem. Okay, may I make a start?
Yeah, go.
Okay. So I don't think that this question, it sounds logical, but at the end I think it isn't, because what we have to do, we can feed the world, we can feed it in an organic way. I think that's not so much the question. The question is we have to change our behavior, how we consume. So we have to reduce meat consumption. We have to produce more food and less fodder. We have to produce more human food and less food for animals, and we have to reduce food waste, and then we can easily feed the world. We can easily feed the planet, and so I think the question shouldn't be raised because it's not a question. It's already clear. So I think we can raise the bar in sustainability and biodiversity and all the problems that we face, climate change, adapting to climate change, and so on. And at the same time, we can feed the world. So it's not either or. It's definitely both, or all of these benefits at the same time.
Fantastic, thank you, Alfred. Mirko.
For me, just to mention that the current answer of the Commission is the farm to fork strategy, where they promote the sustainable food systems and trying to combine all the different requests that the sector is confronted with.
That's great, thank you. No, that's very helpful and well worth us thinking about. Now,
just very briefly, I agree with again with what you said, Alfred. I think we're caught in this narrative of we have a food crisis. I agree. I don't think we have a crisis here. It's really about changing consumption patterns, maybe being more efficient in how we produce. But it's not. I don't think there's a crisis as such. So, but I would leave it as that. At that.
Okay, that's right. That's very interesting and very helpful, because I think as you were reflecting, this is something that is a frequent question, isn't it? Whenever we talk about greater sustainability, there's a sort of degree of anxiety that we will lose productivity.
And then the next question often is then, but that's not possible. You can't change the behavior of people. And then I say, well, we just have seen it is possible. You can do everything. It's not possible anymore. Because if we think back 1.5 years, then nobody thought this and this can happen. It can happen, it can be done, and we can solve problems if we want to. So it's just we have to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that maybe that could be one of the great lessons of this terrible time, isn't it? That when anybody says something's not possible, we all have to look to ourselves because, it wasn't possible to make a vaccine in less than 10 years and it's been done in 10 months. It wasn't possible for people to stay in their homes to protect each other, and they've been able to do so. We couldn't work from home. If we think a little while ago, we would have all had to train and fly into Brussels to do a meeting like this, and our friends in Africa and Asia and Southeast Asia would have been excluded. And now we can do this. So there are all sorts of things that are possible now. So I think that's a really powerful point, Alfred. Mirko, do you want to add to that sort of tension about sustainability and productivity, or you're happy?
Well, all my attention is now in the soil strategy, which have to be designed based on all the feedback received, and that's my main focus and attention for the moment.
That's fantastic. No, and I completely understand that. So that's brilliant. I think we've had a really lovely discussion here, and it's been great to hear your very different perspectives. But also, as you say, I love this idea of a recipe. We've got all the ingredients. We've got everything that we need. Now we just need to discuss how do we combine all of those things, and how do we do that together, and how do we make those balanced? Because, sometimes actually the greatest food is from actually well-known and simple ingredients, but it's the skill of putting them together that makes all of the difference. So thank you very much for those insights. You probably haven't had a chance because you've been looking at the screen, but there's been lots of response and comments to you, which are really sort of exciting and interesting. Back to that question about, are there platforms that people can use? I've seen WOCAT mentioned, Valerie, a couple of other things that seem fairly familiar to me, and some examples that we can all look at. And then also, of course, the mentions that, any platform with evidence, we do need to think about the quality and robustness of that evidence, because it, junk in, junk out, but that's really important. And Nick's asking who's cooking. I think we're all cooking gently in a warming planet. I think that's our problem, Nick. So it just remains for me to say thank you so much for our panelists coming in today. It's been great, really great to have you here. Thank you, Mirko, for coming in.
Thank you to you.
You came in this morning, that was great, and you bared with us all day when you've got so much to be doing, and so coming in at the end was really lovely of you. Alfred, great to see you, really powerful in giving you that chance to join us, and I think that's something we always need to remember. And I loved your description of the researcher-farmer relationship. My nephew sort of describes it as encountering a shark. The shark is probably as scared of you as you are of it. And once you get over that, life kind of gets a lot easier. We're all slightly fearful of one another, and we need to find ways of not being. So that was great. And Mel, thank you so much. You've done so much today, and it's been an absolute pleasure listening to you through the afternoon and keeping us all on track.